The Garmin Fenix 7X Pro is without a doubt the most controversial topic on my channel. 8 months ago, I put up my first impressions. I got the watch, I played around with it a bit, and I found that right away there were certain things that just didn't line up with my expectations. A lot of people absolutely hated the video. I have something like a 24% dislikes. So people just reacted negatively without a question. So I went over a few things, software related, hardware related, that just surprised me about the overall performance of the product. I returned it. I don't like returning products. I really avoid doing it. I usually try and absorb the mistake myself and sell something at a loss or what have you. But I returned the watch, and then the comments just came in, just flooded the video. Maybe I'll put some up. Just people saying, you know, I've been using this watch. I've been using Garmin for ages. I love it. It works well for me. I had some of my friends, most of my friends reach out to me and say, you know, I have the watch. It works well for me. These are the reasons, etc. They gave me feedback. People from the channel gave me feedback. So what I ended up doing was going out and buying another one, really just to see if I was going crazy, if it was me, if I was completely out to lunch on the watch itself. When I got the watch at first, it was the Garmin 7X Pro, but the Gorilla Glass, not the Sapphire version. What I did was I picked up the highest end version with the Sapphire glass, because people did say that one of my criticisms was the display, and they said that with the Sapphire glass, it would definitely be better. It's been 8 months now that I've been using this watch daily. I've been using it on all of my workouts. I've been using it on all of my runs. I've been using it on all of my backpacking and hiking trips. I'm in the position now to make a follow-up on the watch. So I am going to touch on a few of the things that I found initially in my first impressions, things that people commented on, where I think there were comments that I was wrong in retrospect, and I've learned about different functions and different reasons why the watch might be designed that way. And then there's still some things that I 100% believe that my opinion was justified in retrospect. So let's get the first one out of the way, which is the software. So when I got the watch, I first started to look at the interface on the computer, which is the Garmin Explore, Garmin Connect, and I found that those were not the greatest applications on desktop. I've used them a lot before, and they have their particularities. Having spoken to one of my good friends, he just showed me the workflow that he uses very quickly to go from Gaia to Connect on his mobile phone without having to go through the desktop. Now, I like designing my routes on a desktop. I find it easier to map things out when I have the time and I'm at home. I do it on my mobile device too with Gaia. So I use Gaia a lot. Basically, you just go into Gaia, select your course, and then say export to GPX. You can pull up Connect from there, Garmin Connect on your mobile device. It'll import it, save the course, and then you can export it to your watch from there, and you have them both. When you do a route or whatever, once you do your run or your hike or whatever activity you're doing, it syncs, and then you can take care of everything. You can also obviously import things back into Gaia if you did a different, if you tracked your route and whatnot. It 100% works. It's not an issue at all. I really do like Gaia because of all of the layers and different elements that help me plan things out. I still find it unfortunate, considering that Garmin is a mapping leader, that their Explore app is not the industry leader. They just released a new version. There's reviews out there on the new version of it. It's just not as good as Gaia. Now, there is an element to this that still doesn't work, and that is Garmin Connect does not work if you are offline. Sometimes I'm out in the field, I save the area where I am on Gaia to be able to do offline routing. So if you're on a trip and then you reroute, you change your plans and you want to get that new route onto your watch that you've planned out from your, your mini computer that you might have with you, you can't do it. Connect does not work offline. You need to be signed in. So that whole interface, you've got to get all of those things done while you're still connected to a network. I think you can export from Gaia while you're offline, but Connect doesn't work at all. You need to be logged in. Unless someone has a trick that Connect can work, and then let me know. I might be wrong again. When it comes to the hardware, using the actual watch in the field and my experience with maps, because that is the main reason that I have this watch, is to reduce the amount of times I check my phone or to avoid using my phone while I'm in the field, just because there's situations where your phone is wet or you have to keep your gloves on or whatnot, and using a touch screen isn't ideal. So that brings me to the first subject, which is the touch screen on the watch. One of the comments was, the whole idea is that the watch can be completely controlled with the physical buttons. And I really hadn't thought about that in depth. And it's 100% true. What I've done now since then is just turn off the touch interface and use it completely with buttons. Every now and then I turn the touch screen on for certain things, but overall I've just found that using the physical buttons is the better way. It means that your settings don't get bumped or anything like that while you're out in the field, and getting used to using the physical buttons is really great practice for the winter when you have gloves on. So that's definitely something where I was wrong about. People were saying, you shouldn't expect to have sort of like all of the touch interface, pinching and turning and stuff like that you do on a cell phone. The watch doesn't have the processor capability, it just can't do that. And in retrospect, 100%, I agree with that. Having the physical button interface is a huge advantage, and it means that you can look at your maps and interact with your watch without having to take off gloves. You can do it in the rain, etc. The next part is the display and the map refresh. When you move around on the map, when you pan and zoom, the map needs to refresh and tiles need to come up in the background. And I had a lot of people say, you just shouldn't expect better than that on such a small device. And I have to admit that once I've been in the field, I tend to set my zoom at a level that works for me. Again, I'm much more familiar with the buttons. I'm not doing that as much, and I am looking at the map and using it quite a lot, and it does work. Is it as good as using the map that's on your phone? Definitely not. So I'll get into my use case at the very end and explain to you guys how I'm using the watch now, but I've adapted to that refresh rate. I still think that there's room for improvement, that the watch should be able to have a more powerful brain. When it comes to the screen and how easy it is to see, the brightness, the resolution, etc., I had many people comment that is a trade-off. It's an active decision on the part of Garmin that if you go towards an AMOLED screen, it's just too heavy on the battery, that you just won't have the same battery life. So I'm kind of on the fence on this one. There's another person that I appreciate, because I'm not an electronics person, that explained the refresh rate, the type of screen they choose. It's all to do with that battery performance, which without a doubt is one of the greatest features of this watch. The battery performance is phenomenal. I hardly ever charge it. When I do go out in the field, and I do long days, 20-hour days, 15-hour days, I do charge it typically every second night, or depending how much charge I have to start off with. So it's not like you're going days without charging the watch if you're out in the field. You definitely need to have a charger handy if you're doing big days. If you're a person who does mostly running or daily trail runs, what have you, it's not really an issue. You should be able to go quite a long time without charging it. So battery performance is phenomenal. The idea that it's a decision based on having that battery performance versus having an amazing bright screen, I see the trade-off there. I do find that the screen is quite hard to see when you're out in daylight. I wish there was some kind of happy intermediate or some way to have it on, you know, when you look at the watch, typically the light is on low or it's pretty much off. When you turn your watch up towards you, it brightens and you can see it better. I wish there was an other level to that where you could almost turn on super bright, and I'd like the maps to have a better color palette that is gives you all the information but is very visible when you're out and you're in the sun. The other part is that, yes, you can pan, you can zoom, you can do all of those things with the maps when you're out in the field, but it's a bit different than when you zoom, and that refresh means that you kind of lose where you are. Regardless of what kind of map you're using, whether it's on your phone, whether it's on your watch, or if it's a paper map, well, with a paper map, you get this huge perspective, but you're stuck at one scale. When you use a phone, you have different scales, but as you change scales, that zoom occurs real time, so you don't really lose your place. And then on the watch, it's like looking down a map through a paper towel tube. So you're looking at one spot. You have a very limited perspective, so you have to get used to that, and I have gotten used to that. I still end up, when I need to make decisions, taking out my phone for that bigger perspective and for being able to look around and get an idea of things much more quickly. The other part of using the watch is the menu system. I personally don't find the menu system intuitive. I think that you should go, the first option should be the map, then the activity. On the Garmin watches, it's very activity centric. So your profile and your parameters are set by activity. You set all of those up first, so then you say, I'm going for a run. How do you want to do the run? I'm going to navigate. That pulls up the map. I would rather pull up the map and then say, I'm doing this course by running. So it's maybe there's a way to go about it that way. And I think that if you're a Garmin user and you've been using Garmin for many generations, you're just used to it. I've read the whole manual now. There hasn't been that much that's changed in terms of what I know how to do or not. It's all there. The way I'm using the watch now and how it's helped me is that I use it to supplement my phone. I try as much as possible to navigate off of my watch, and I think that I'm getting 50% more battery life out of my phone because I have the watch with me, just because I'm not pulling out my phone, looking at it. I know I can take a quick glance, say, okay, I'm on my route, I'm on my course, I'm not lost, I'm good, and then I just don't end up looking at my phone, which is nice. It really is an advantage. It really means that I don't have to worry so much about the battery life in my phone. I would typically really try to conserve battery life and look at my phone as little as possible, using on average 15 to 20%, sometimes 25% of my phone's battery per day, and that's with very minimal use. This way, I don't really have to limit myself. I can just look at my watch quickly all the time. I know if I'm en route, and then it also gives me all of those other details, like how far you've gone in a day, what's my pace, how much elevation I've done, all of that other information that when you have it, it changes how you're navigating. You're not wondering, okay, how fast am I going? How far have I gone? Just look, you say, okay, I've done 5.8 kilometers in 2 hours. That gives me an idea of my pace right away, gives me an idea of where I am, how far I'm gonna get. Yes, the watch also gives you things like ETA and other information like that, which depending on your trail or your whatever you're doing may or may not be that accurate. It tends to just average out what your pace is so far and then predict that forward. So sometimes it's spot on, especially for a longer day, it tends to be quite accurate. When it comes to being outdoors, navigating, using it as a tool for on-trail and off-trail navigation, it has helped, it has changed how I operate outside. There were other comments where people said, no one does that. You shouldn't be looking at the map. Don't have expectations to be able to look at satellites on a watch. I find that a little bit strange just because it's marketed to be able to do that. You can put satellite maps on it. Is it underpowered for that? Yeah, it's underpowered for satellite images. And if your device isn't ready for that yet, maybe just don't market it, maybe wait for it. Now there's the Garmin 8. Does it seem like a big step ahead? Not really. It has some more features. I don't think it would really change that much about how you use the device. Is the Fenix 8 better than the Fenix 7? Is that better than the Fenix 6? It's hard to say. They don't really give you that much information when it comes to the device specifications. It's really all about the little software component. I think the best way to say if something is good or bad, or what's your recommendation, what's my recommendation, is if I broke this today, if I smashed it, if I lost it, would I go out and replace it? And I think that's the easiest way to evaluate a product. For most people, the Garmin Instinct 2 might be a great option. You get so much information that can help you navigate, like your pace, your distance. Are you on your track or off? I think that's still all there in something like the Instinct for significant price drop. And then there's the other versions that are kind of the step down from the highest end. Maybe that's what I'd go with. I'm not 100% sure. If you're on a budget, there are probably other options out there that will get the job done, that will get you maybe 80% of the highest end model and be perfectly good.